Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for your patience. Got there in the end. So it's great to be here at NAB and to share with you some of the work that we've been doing through our company, Simplestream. And I'm going to be talking to you today about the change, I think, that is really going on in the whole of the TV broadcast industry, the rise of the change in viewing habits, how people are now consuming content in different ways. And I'm going to be talking to you about some of the experiences that we've had along our sort of journey over the last 7 years, starting in the live streaming sector. And we have, I guess our origins were really around live streaming and creating a live to VOD solution for actually the teleshopping sector, so that when a product is still on the shelf and it gets to the end of that program segment, we kind of built a workflow to generate the video on demand asset from that linear feed. This was 7 years ago, and as a result, our customer base has grown, certainly in that sector. But it's really interesting just to understand how broadcasters now are looking for new ways to engage with audiences. Traditionally, broadcasters' customers tend to be the operators themselves. It could be your Dish, your DirecTV. In the UK, it could be Sky, Virgin, BT. But now it's all changing. But if we look at where we are today, and we can see really the decline of linear TV, and there's only really a handful of shows that we see that if you're in sport, live is everything. If you're in news, live is everything. If you are a new series of Game of Thrones, live is very important. But then for lots of the other channels, the appointment to view is less so. And it's more about having the controls for the broadcasters to enable the end users to watch the content at a time of their choosing. So linear TV is certainly in a challenging space at the moment, and I think that we're not still there. You know, it's not going to die overnight, but it is certainly changing. And as a technology vendor, we really see this happening a great deal. And for the broadcasters, it's slightly concerning because traditionally their business models, if you're a free-to-air broadcaster, it's all about ad sales. It's all about increasing reach. It's all about having the measurement system in place to measure your audience. And by definition, broadcast is limited. It's a one-way street. And so there is a huge risk now. This is for the UK, £7.5 billion advertising industry that is undergoing a rapid movement. And I think it's very similar for the US market as well, as people shun away from, people are maybe a bit more fed up now of watching 20 minutes of commercials per hour when you're trying to watch a TV show, whereas you can just go on Netflix or one of the other SVOD services and not have any of that. So in a previous existence, the broadcast infrastructure, broadcasters would spend millions of pounds on DTH delivery, DTT delivery of channels, and this has always traditionally come at a high cost. When you think about the broadcast infrastructure, you are sending one signal to many, and you are guessing at the end of the day who your audience is, because the chances are that audience measurement system is very small and perhaps not a truly representative sample of the actual audience that is engaging with the content. So that's all changing now. New infrastructure is delivering new business models. So by definition, broadcasters, it's a one-way street. There's no return path data from your end customer. And yet now people are watching more and more content in lots of different ways. this is kind of like how it used to be. TV was very much a kind of a family experience. Everyone watching maybe the same content in the same room at the same time, all together. But now this is really changing, and it's not just about the customers that are changing their viewing habits. The operators themselves are now getting smarter and understanding that with the benefits of increased compression technologies, more reliable CDN infrastructure, the ability to reach millions of people via perhaps unicast streaming, whereas before could not be achievable. Platforms such as maybe Sky in the UK, they announced a couple of months ago that they will be going to a purely IP delivered solution for all their channels, live and catch up, video on demand. And then as soon as that announcement came out, share prices of satellite operators literally dropped off a cliff. I think the SES share price dropped like 90% in the last 12 months because suddenly broadcasters are trying to work out, well, actually, we don't even need that infrastructure anymore because we can just invest in cloud-based TV services. So this is perhaps not great news for satellite operators, but good news for, I think, the owners of the broadband infrastructure, because ultimately you need to deliver that content to the end customer. It's good news for the companies that own the 4G, 5G spectrums as well. And that change in family viewing has now really, really changed. Every screen is a TV. Over-the-top delivery of content is really challenging the status quo. The data that you can generate from a viewer's perspective really allows a broadcaster to understand actually who is watching their content, and that then allows them to have different strategies around perhaps content production. So on the basis that you might invest $1 million in a 1-hour show, to actually understand how many people were engaging with that content might then shape your future content acquisition strategy to make your business more profitable. So perhaps this is a bit more realistic of how people are actually viewing content, whether they're watching different content all together, maybe watching the same content with different interactive experiences across different screens. This seems to be the way that we are heading, perhaps apart from live sports, which is still very much a joint viewing experience, but it's certainly changing. What perhaps isn't changing is the fact that people are perhaps still watching the same amount of video every day. And whereas that used to be TV, now it's just video. So people are still consuming, on average, perhaps 4 hours a day of video, but either across different devices, and with the linear TV in decline, they're actually watching more catch-up services or video-on-demand streaming services. So for traditional TV, this poses both problems but also opportunities. And as a British company, I lead with case studies for the UK market. One of the biggest broadcasters in the UK is ITV. They have a joint venture called BritBox. I don't know if you're familiar with it here in the US, but over the last 18 months, they've got 250,000 subscribers coming from the US market as an SVOD platform, and that's a good way of perhaps generating new revenue streams outside the UK that can come back and maybe build more content. Other platforms such as Virgin, BT, TalkTalk, they're all investing heavily in this OTT structure, but it's really only Sky as the leading pay TV platform in the UK. They have really diversified into a platform called Now TV. which is essentially very similar to the sort of Sling TV model that the US market has. So from a European perspective, the forecasted revenues are enormous, and this opens up lots and lots of amazing opportunities for, I'd say, niche content owners. When you look at what the budget, so Netflix's content budget seems to go up by about $1 billion, $2 billion a year. So we're now at $8 billion of investment. This is obviously exclusivity to Netflix as well, to drive people to come in and take up the platform. More operators are trying to differentiate themselves by producing other original content. When you look at FANG, the Facebook, Amazon, Netflix and Google, they are all grabbing market share, trying to grab market share, sign up leading celebrities to produce exclusive content for their platforms. And this kind of like halo effect that I think has been created from the likes of Netflix and Amazon is really interesting if you are a content owner wanting to service perhaps a niche area of content to a niche audience. So with launching these services tends to come some issues along the way. If you're a big broadcaster, these kind of OTT services, if you choose to build in-house, can take a long time. They can be very costly. You might have to have a team of maybe 30 to 40 people to build your service. They're complex in their nature, and the services that are perhaps out there are maybe a little bit not so much customizable. And where our company would come in is that we would talk to broadcasters, telcos, content owners, and try and understand what their kind of strategy is for the next 3 to 5 years, because 2 years is a very long time in sort of OTT and the way that the industry is heading. And so it's important that we can offer flexible solutions. We try and make it easy, so we'll come here and we'll go to the other big shows in Europe, and we will do our kind of own sort of RFP process and seek out and find the best partners to get together with to deliver essentially a managed solution. And then our strategy that we put forward to all of our customers is being on as many devices that are out there. Every device can be a TV, some sort of viewing experience, and then we pride ourselves on being able to deliver these services with a fast time to market. If we look at our kind of three core pillars for our company, we have a cloud TV based platform. If you want to do multiple live channels, have a live to VOD solution, video on demand, that's kind of the cloud TV side. In the UK, we are the leaders in hybrid TV services. So this is a little bit like ATSC 3.0 that is coming to the US now. We're kind of like doing HBB TV apps very similarly in the UK already. And then the piece that I'm going to probably focus on more for the rest of the presentation is actually the VOD in the box. So this allows you, if you're a content owner, to have full control over your content, put your content onto maybe 5 different platforms, desktop, mobile, tablet, Amazon Fire, tvOS, Roku. We'll get you up and running in like 6 weeks. And it's a white label platform that you can put your content in, and then out will come your platform, all ready to go. So just to share a couple of examples. So Cloud TV platform, this is a business that has actually a lot of subscribers now in the US, but it's really targeting the sort of Afro-urban fans. They have 10 live channels available on multiple satellites across the world, but they actually have a really young audience. And so for them, actually embracing a cloud TV delivered system, being on six platforms that they're on at the moment, allows them to service a much younger demographic that basically don't watch TV in a normal traditional way. They've got 10 channels, 30 radio stations. I think they've now got actually 3,500 hours of video on demand, and that can be around documentaries, sport, movies, the whole sort of piece. And for them, it's all about being on multiple platforms. This is a service that we launched for A&E networks in the UK. Again, they'll spend a lot of money being on a DTT platform, but they still won't really understand who is actually watching their content. So by building for them a platform across multiple devices, that then gets them onto several platforms, but more importantly, new advertising business models through ad insertion. So this isn't even dynamic ad insertion on a live feed. This is taking the program assets from, as they're going to be delivered to playout, we basically drop a copy into our cloud and we mirror the playout but via OTT. And by that way you've got the markers and you can put in multiple advertising in and around the content. In the UK, hybrid TV is proving extremely popular now. So the amount of smart TVs that are now sold, people tend to be replacing their TVs once every 2 to 3 years, whereas TVs used to be replaced once every 10 to 15 years. So it's really, really building up. So we are, as I mentioned, one of the leading companies building services for those platforms. And then just to give you a few examples of VOD in a box. So this is literally where you can come in and you can change your logo, change your fonts. You've got your metadata that comes in. This is for a service called History Hit, led by one of the UK's leading historians. So he has a lot of content that was produced for the BBC and other history services. So he's got a great following. He had like a million podcast users listening to him talking about history, and then he thought, well, actually, why don't I make my own TV platform? And he's a very well-known celebrity in the UK, so we built him this kind of whole service for him that allows him to engage with a history audience that perhaps traditional TV does not now do as much as it used to. We've got another service as well called Marquee, based in New York, and they are servicing the drama and the arts as well. So the point being is, if you do have ownership of this niche content and you want to reach your kind of audience, you can do this now very, very cost effectively. And there's various different business models that allows you to kind of pay as you grow, that mitigates your risk. Actually, these have actually already launched already. So we've got a comedy SVOD service called Next Up Comedy. Again, started in the UK, but now they've got international ambitions. And then in the UK, there isn't really a dedicated home for country music, believe it or not. But I know it's obviously huge in the US, but it's got massive popularity in the UK, but it's all about building a platform that services that need. And then finally, I just wanted to give you an idea around, whereas YouTube has always been kind of go-to place for the sort of younger audiences, broadcasters have been testing their feet, testing the market with YouTube. Something like Real Stories. So I was with their CEO yesterday at a DPP event, and we're helping them migrate part of these 1.2 million subscribers that subscribe to their YouTube channel. How much money are they making from advertising on YouTube, even if you do have 1.2 million users? Not as much as if you had 10% paying $3.99 a month as an SVOD service. And so that's kind of where they've got to now. So it's all about understanding the audience, curating content, making it relevant. And so this is some screenshots from their service that we have now done for them. And they've got a whole strategy around aggregating more content together, and I think it's indicative of perhaps not just broadcasters but actually production companies as well that are looking for, once they've done their deals with the broadcasters and the rights have come back to them as a production company, they're sat on this amazing content that is just gathering dust. And so nowadays you can have a broad range of OTT services that allows you to reach that niche audience in a cost-effective way, and more importantly how you can actually monetize your content as well. So that's it. So if you have any questions, happy to take some questions afterwards, but thank you very much for listening to me, and I hope you enjoy the rest of NAB. Thank you.